distributed. Baitulmal is the Islamic term for the income that comes to the Islamic treasury that is meant for the good of all of society. And it has many different sources. The primary source will be from the Islamic obligations of zakat and of khums, and also any other liability which an Islamic state, if there is an Islamic state, or if there is no state, then our religious institutions can take or are required to collect from the believers. The use of Baitulmal is according to specific instructions that Islam has given. So zakat has one use, khums has another use, anfal, which is mentioned in the Quran, has another use. Each form of fitrah has another usage. Every form of Islamic financial obligation has a particular use. And we shouldn't think of them as charity. If I give my zakat, then I might use it as a tax deduction for tax purposes. But I shouldn't think of it as charity that I have given, because that is not Islamically my property in the first place. That the Quran says that that is the haqqun ma'loom, which belongs to its recipients. It's their property that I had. If I don't pay it, then I'm a thief. If I give it, I'm returning their right to them. Similarly, if I give khums, then I have an obligation to give it to the right person. But I don't have a claim on it, because it wasn't my property. So anything that Islam has said we owe to Baitulmal that belongs to the entire Muslim community, and whoever is in charge of ensuring it is used properly, they are responsible for it. The Prophet himself and Amirul Mu'mineen, there were many people who objected when they would use money according to the greater good of the Islamic Ummah. And that's natural. If I am in financial difficulty, if my house is in foreclosure, then I can never imagine that it is justified for somebody to spend millions of dollars restoring, for example, old manuscripts or books that are in danger of being lost. I might think that that is a useless expense. There was a time when Umar came to Amirul Mu'mineen. He said that all of these things which are in the vicinity of the Kaaba, why don't I sell them, and I can use them to benefit the defense of the Muslim community. And Amirul Mu'mineen, he put a stop to it. He said that the Prophet, when he was alive, the Muslim community was much poorer than they are now. And the Prophet saw those same things that were in the presence, the mawqufat that had been present for the Kaaba. Some of them were very valuable even in that time. They were of gold, they were ancient relics, and they were worth today millions of dollars. When the Muslims were poor, the Prophet didn't say that sell them and feed the Muslims, because that would have done something once, and then it would have been done. But their presence in Makkah, it serves other purposes, symbolic, spiritual, and even material, for the Muslim Ummah. Similarly, when the Prophet spent money from Baitulmal in order to prevent the enemies of Islam from using their energies against the Muslims after the Battle of Hunayn. People objected, they said that this could have been used for the poor Muslims. But the Prophet, as the Messenger of Allah, he knew what was not just in the interests of the Muslims then, but for the long term. And sometimes those decisions, they are difficult for a person to make who might be an expert in finances, but their concern from morning till evening is not the long-term good of the Muslim Ummah. Their concern is their personal needs, their personal goals. So it's very important for us, first of all, to recognize that our Islamic obligations, if they belong to Baitulmal, then they are not our property. We don't have a claim on them, except as every other Muslim has a claim on them. And second of all, if Islam has given a certain channel to make sure that those needs are fulfilled, we should respect that channel. And we shouldn't think that my own horizon is the greatest good of Islam as a whole. That is the mistake that the second caliph did fall into, and Amirul Mu'mineen made a point of correcting it. And we also should make sure that we can maintain that proper sense of who is responsible for the proper utilization of whatever money is in Baitulmal. Now, when there is a non-ma'soom, we do have the right to ask. And if we are entrusted by Allah to give to Baitulmal, we do have the right to choose which person we entrust it with. But that doesn't mean that we should arrogate the decision to ourselves. We should find who is the most reliable person in our mind, who is spending their entire time looking and analyzing what is the best long-term interest of Islam. And then after finding that person whom we can trust, we should give it in their care. Many people, they might say that I don't agree with the way that, for example, sadaqah is used or khums is used, and so I'm not going to give it there and I'll spend it myself. I know best. That is the wrong perspective. Because if my waking hours are spent trying to figure out my own economic advancement, I cannot know best. I don't even know how many Muslims live in Bulgaria. How can I claim that I know best how to deal with the best interests of the Muslim world? And it is much better for those funds to be used by somebody who is aware and is concerned with those interests, even if a portion is used inefficiently, than for that money to be used by somebody who is ignorant, even if they use it very efficiently. Would you rather have your money invested in a corporation that is professional, even though you know that they do spend money which is sometimes inefficient? If it were audited, it would not always be efficient. Or would you rather give your money to a person who is incompetent to begin with? They don't know how to invest. Most of us would trust our money to Warren Buffett, even if we know that he might spend a lot of money on a shareholders meeting because we think that he's competent. Whatever is wasted, it will be made up for because of his expertise. Yet when it comes to religious things, we say, there is a Warren Buffett in this field, but I'll spend it myself. I'll invest it myself. And we don't even know what is Islam trying to accomplish. So we end up doing more harm than good. So the Baitulmal, in short, it is the property of the Muslim Ummah to be used for the greatest long-term interests, today, tomorrow, 100 years from now, and until the Day of Judgment, of the Muslim Ummah. We have an obligation towards it, and the Ummah also has a claim on it. We shouldn't lose sight of the relative importance of our claim and the entire Ummah's claim. And that's a challenge which every religious community has faced in America, and the Muslims also, we do face. We shouldn't fall into the traps and the mistakes that have been made by other religious communities, where they think of things purely in material terms or purely in societal terms. They lose sight of the religious and the spiritual significance of our material obligations.